Hi, welcome to Off Script. I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Today on the show, we are talking about Knock at the Cabin. The new M. Night Shyamalan thriller is out. It may or may not have an M. Night Shyamalan twist. We're not going to spoil it, but we will talk about it. We're also going to talk about DC's new slate of films. James Gunn finally has an announcement about what's happening with Superman and Batman and everything else. And we have our resident comic fan, Dr. Draper, here to fill us in on the goods. We're going to talk about Infinity Pool. New Brandon Cronenberg body horror feature is out. We have seen it, and we're doing it at the end. For anybody who's squeamish, stick around. It's going to be good stuff. And before we get to all that, we need to talk about the news. Before we get to all that, we got some personal podcast news.
That's right.
Andy, do you want to explain what has happened on our YouTube page over the past 2 weeks while we've been away? My God.
So we had a huge explosion in viewership after the release of our last show, but also specifically our review of RRR or Triple R, the Indian epic that we watched last. We had, what are we up to now? The last I saw was about 8,000 views.
It's at like 13K, which is not, I think for
considering the rest
channels,
of our videos get like 5 to 10 views.
Andy and I focus on the content here on the show first, and we do the marketing second, so we don't put in a lot of effort. So when one comes out and like is far and away the most successful video we've had in a minute, it's a big deal. That video has nearly doubled our YouTube subscriber base. RRR, of all the movies, right? Like, it's not going to be Avatar 2. It's not going to be Avengers. Like, RRR is the thing that does it. I don't believe it. Like, I'm a believer now. I can't. How could I not be? Indian cinema's here to stay. It's amazing.
Also, that movie came out in theaters like 6 months ago. It's streaming now on Netflix, so it's not even like a big new release or anything. It's been out for a while, but we had a lot of interest in our opinions. A lot of things correcting our not super accurate information, which we're happy to learn from. We are not Indian. We are an unfamiliar. It's a culture we are unfamiliar with, and so we learned a lot along the way. Like the term Bollywood isn't something we should be using anymore.
Yes,
for instance, and along with a lot of other details.
I have had so many people tell us in the comments that we fundamentally misunderstood like important plot points in RRR. There were things that I misconstrued as incorrect. We're always learning. We're always growing. Thanks for being kind. And hey, we'll get better. Shoot, who knows? Maybe we're watching something next week that's RR adjacent. Maybe that might be worth talking about. We'll get to that at the end of the show. But we're doing, for what it's worth, we're doing a lot of cool things over on YouTube. Like this got me all kinds of inspired. We're cutting shorts over there. Yeah, shorts. Hey, shorts. We got individual one-off reviews. We got some new thumbnails. Go check it out. Off Script Film Review on YouTube. That's us. We'll plug it again at the end of the show. Anyway, with that, we need to jump into the news. Our first story this week, New Line wins an intense auction for Weapons, the new movie from Barbarian filmmaker Zach Cregger. If you weren't listening to the show when we talked about Barbarian probably a couple months ago now, back, Barbarian was a first horror picture from director Zach Cregger. And it has taken off, and a lot of people got really excited about it. People got hot takes on what they actually think of the movie, but for what it's worth, it sold a bunch of tickets, and a lot of studios really want a piece of this man right here. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you can see him. What is this about, Andy?
So Zach Cregger, writer and director of indie horror hit Barbarian, which we reviewed last year, which I thought was just kind of okay. I wasn't blown away by it, but a lot of people were. It was on some people's top 10 lists, definitely some of the best horror of the year. But there's been this massive bidding war for his new film called Weapons. He allegedly is getting an 8-figure deal to write and direct. He's also going to have final cut. It's going to get theatrical. He's basically in total control. And he has one film. He's only done one movie. Film. And not only that, Jordan Peele's company, Monkey Paw, really wanted this. And apparently they lost out to New Line. Jordan Peele's furious, in shambles, firing people for not getting this film. But Zach Cregger is apparently the big new thing in horror.
That's right. Jordan Peele stun locked, confirmed. Like, just that my man cannot recover. He's so angry. No, reportedly, from what I remember hearing about Barbarian, Cregger actually reached out to Peele before he started shooting the film. He wanted to kind of get an idea from somebody who had come from sketch comedy and was working in the horror space now as a director. And apparently, like, he and Peele got along super well. He said Peele actually helped shape some of the ideas behind the movie. So, like, I think him and Peele are at probably on really good terms personally, and I'll bet it's really a bummer for Peele that Monkey Paw Studios, who is his production company, is not going to be producing Cregger's next feature. Of course, doesn't mean they won't work together in the future, but it's a little bit of a bummer, right? Like, I think the two of them at least have a little bit of kinship, at least from where they come from and where they're going. I think it's kind of cool. I was a bit more warm on Barbarian than Andy was, but for what it's worth, I'll be interested to see what's coming next from this guy. Barbarian's got is got to have one of the biggest like bits of tonal whiplash, like in a movie I've seen in years.
Yeah, it's interesting how popular that movie was. I thought there were things that worked and things that didn't, and I thought there was more that didn't work than did. It did have some good moments, but it had some strange choices. It feels like 3 movies in one. It's like 3 short stories. It feels like it starts over a few times. But it was a hit, and he's a hot property now.
Yeah, and like good for him, I suppose. We'll have to see what comes out from Zach Cregger next. And next story, Westworld gets a new home as Warner Brothers Discovery strikes a deal with Roku, Tubi, and Fast channels. Keen listeners of the show may remember when we talked about HBO pulling Westworld from its library so they could put it on other services. Their new CEO, David Zaslav, has very radical ideas about how the HBO library should be leveraged, and he thinks, you know what, not a lot of people are watching Westworld over here now that they've already seen it. It's already premiered. They did 4 seasons. We should put it in other places so other audiences can see it. Where's Westworld going, Andy?
It is going to Roku and Tubi, which are known as Fast channels, and I just learned this. Fast is not an anagram. It stands for free ad-supported streaming TV. Yes. Fast.
Acronym.
Acronym. Thank you.
Got it. Took me a minute. I got it.
These free channels like Roku and Tubi, which you can download the apps for free, watch for free, and the only catch is that, like traditional cable, there are commercials. There'll usually be about a minute of commercials about every 20 minutes or so, just like kind of standard TV, but it's free. And usually the content on these channels has not been very good. It's been pretty low tier, but they're going to be getting these really, HBO level content. Westworld's a great show, and they're also going to be getting things like The Bachelor, Cake Boss, Say Yes to the Dress, Raised by Wolves. So some really hot properties, but it's sad to see such prestige content go to the free channels.
Okay. Little column A, little column B. I agree on the one hand. I don't like seeing quality HBO content just being like, pushed around like Frankenstein's monster. Like, here, take this, like here's some stuff that we used to make that we don't want anymore. But on the other hand, I do think it's good, right, when prestige content is being shown to audiences all over. Like, it does make it more accessible. And for what it's worth, like, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that may not have seen Westworld that'll be able to watch it now. And Westworld's great stuff. And if it makes people think and maybe raises that expectation for quality a little bit, I think that's a good thing. What is weird to me is just how separated I feel like I am personally from these audiences. I am pretty much completely out on any kind of free ad-supported television. Like, I just pay subscription prices and I try to pay for the ones without ads whenever possible. Not everybody does that. In fact, I don't even use a Roku. The Roku install base is bananas. I don't even remember the actual number, but it is insane how many of those little sticks are out there that are plugged into televisions, not only in America, but all over the country, all over the world. So I think being able to get HBO content like on those in one way or another is a good thing. It does kind of feel like a bit of a dressing down, though, for our wonderful Westworld. That is true.
Well, and the Roku app is available on pretty much any device that has app capabilities. So that's pretty huge. And they have had some good stuff. I watched the John Wick trilogy, the first 3 movies, on, I believe it was on Tubi. They occasionally get some really good programming, but it's been kind of few and far between. But now it's going to be huge, and the reason HBO is doing this is to just offload expenses. If they are licensing it to someone else, and then they're probably getting a cut of the ad revenue as well, so that covers. And also HBO doesn't have to cover the licensing fees or the residuals that go to the actors, directors, the royalties.
Yeah, it's a shrewd financial move, but it's no real surprise coming from Warner Brothers, a studio that push Christopher Nolan out because they said your movie's going to theaters day and date, and he was like, I swear you do that to me once, I'm leaving, and they tried and he bailed. Um, I think look, they're willing to cut a deal to make some money. They'll bail Ezra Miller out. They'll put out the new Harry Potter game. Warner Brothers does not care. Warner Brothers doesn't care at all as long as they're making $1. And speaking of companies that don't care, what better segue? What better opportunity for us to talk about, I think probably the most exciting story this week. AMC is raising ticket prices based on seat location in all of their theaters. Coming soon to a theater near you. It's got announced, this morning? I guess yesterday, right? That's when this happened. I've been seeing red ever since. I forgot who I am. No work has gotten done. Andy, what is this about?
So AMC announced that, like you said, they're going to be offering different prices based on where the seat is in the theater, citing things like sports arenas or concerts where you'll pay more for better seats. That's what they're doing. And so there's going to be 3 tiers. There's going to be kind of the discounted tier, which is the very front row, like the worst seat in the house, can't see anything, break your neck watching the screen. And then a couple of accessibility seats as well. Those will be discounted. And then the next tier is going to be your standard seats. So decent seats, but not the very middle center seats. And those will just be kind of the regular price. And then the real good seats, what they're calling, I guess, Sightline, is going to be an
Sightline, right?
Preferred Sightline is
Preferred
an extra $2. And those will be, so the best seats in the house, those ones that are, 5 to 7 rows up, 10 or so seats in, right there in the middle. Those are going to be the most expensive. This will apply, I guess, mostly to primetime shows, not matinees. And it'll be affected by whether or not you have an AMC Stubs program as well. So there's a lot going on, but the basics are it's going to be 3 tiers of seat now.
Elliot Hamlish, Executive VP and CMO at AMC Theaters, had this to say. Sightline at AMC more closely aligns with AMC's seat pricing approach to that of many other entertainment venues who offer experience-based pricing and another way for moviegoers to find value at the movies. While every seat at AMC delivers an amazing moviegoing experience, we know there are some moviegoers who prioritize their specific seat and others who prioritize value moviegoing. Sightline at AMC accommodates both sentiments to help ensure that our guests have more control over their experience, that every trip to AMC is a great one. What a load of crap. I hate this. I think this is like the worst theater policy maybe I've ever heard. There was a time when the only way to get a good seat was to literally show up to the theater before everybody else and be the first in line at the box office. But then online ticketing happened, right? And everybody got into the idea that you buy your stuff a week early and then you get that prime seat in the middle. Or for like a premiere show, something exciting coming out, you got to buy weeks in advance. Like Andy usually is the guy buying tickets for our group for anything exciting. And he'll buy, like you bought Spider-Man tickets like a month and a half out. Like it's crazy how early you have to get on and give these companies your ticket price before you even get to the theater. But now AMC has figured out a way to squeeze another $1 out of you. They're just going to charge you based on where you sit. And they're going to claim that it's for like everybody who wants to go to the movies. But that is like the biggest load of crap I've ever seen. They're just going to charge more. And I think it's terrible.
Yeah, this is a really bad idea. I mean, coming up with ways for people to stay home or giving people excuses not to go to the theater is the last thing you need to do. It is so hard to get people into the theaters, and theaters are effectively kind of dying a slow death at the moment. And then you come up with a real big reason for people not to want to go. Because like I said, most people would just work around this or just simply not go. I wouldn't go during a prime time seat. I would wait for a weekend matinee showing of something or discount Tuesday, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I know they've got that clause in there, right? Yeah, this only applies before 4, and it only applies on certain days, and it doesn't apply to discount Tuesdays. And like that's all like cute for now, but like that's not really how corporate policy works. It's a slow rollout of something larger. Like I don't see this being a limited time experience, unless of course it's met with a lot of public rebuttal. People get on Twitter and they're like, hey, this sucks, or they genuinely see a decline in ticket sales. That would probably make the biggest difference. But it's frustrating because it just feels so out of touch with what the movies are supposed to be. There's this great scene in Babylon, right? A lot of movies, a lot of people didn't like, but Andy and I did. When Brad Pitt is explaining to Gene Smart's critic character that, like, theaters are meant to be kind of the cheap seats. They're for people who can't afford live experiences. They're meant for people to have some kind of escape. They're meant for people to get away. And yeah, that was the 1920s, that was the 1930s, and that's a fictional script written by Damien Chazelle. But the spirit of that, I think, is really valid. Like, we should not be charging for movies like it's a concert venue, because it isn't. It's a crappy screen in a moldy multiplex. It was built 30 years ago. Like, it doesn't have to be some big sporting event. And it's frustrating that this seems to be the way they want to go, mostly on the back of CEO Adam Aaron, who Variety pointed out formerly worked for Norwegian Cruise Lines and ran the Philadelphia 76ers. Cruise lines and sports. My man is heartily of the belief that you should be paying more based on where you sit, and I think it's a terrible policy.
Yeah, this is gonna blow back. Just like Netflix recently released stuff about anti-password sharing and huge blowback and backpedal. I think the same thing's gonna happen here. People are not gonna do this. They're gonna avoid those show times, or they're all gonna file into that front row, the discount seats, or buy every seat except the more expensive one. And just again, people will be like, I'll just wait. I'll just watch streaming at home. Thanks for giving me another excuse.
Yeah, if you're watching the video version of the show, I've got it up here. You can see a sample of what this looks like. This is currently going live in Kansas City, New York, and Chicago, and will be rolling out nationally at a later date. This is a showing for Saturday after it launches this Friday. And I don't know where this is exactly, but AMC 19th Street East 6. This is what it looks like. Our blue seats are front row and like 2 seats off to the side for handicap seats. Those are the cheap seats. There's a cluster of what, 5 rows in the middle that are like highlighted gold. Those are your preferred Sightline. And then your standards are just this big circle around the outside of that cluster of good seats. And those are your normal pricing. Like, I don't like it. It just feels so scummy. And it feels like such a lame way to like upcharge people for something that isn't even that verifiable, right? Like, you're not going to have a thing where you scan your ticket when you get to your seat. Like, you just sit in whichever seat you want. I think it encourages people to jump seats more than they should, because they'll just pay for a cheap one and then go to a nice one. Like, I think it encourages, I don't know, infighting for people in movie theaters. Like, it's gonna keep people on Netflix. It doesn't get people out. It keeps people in. God, I think it's bad all around.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what kind of reception this gets, if any at all, if it's successful. It will affect the kind of the casual goer who maybe doesn't read up on film and entertainment news. They might just get there and be like, whoa, why are these prices different? And then just be forced to pay it because they're already there and they're already planned to go, and that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, for more on this, keep it here and off script. Dude, I don't want to go to AMC. I don't want to support this at all. Like, I think this is super lame, and I got a bunch of gift cards for AMC, so we should just go and get it out of the way before this rolls out. Because if this becomes a thing, and it seems like it's very much going to, like, I don't want to support the theater that's doing this. I just don't. Like, I think this is super lame. I'll go to Cinemark. Anyway, with that being said, let's move into something much rosier. Something much more exciting, right? Not news, but a feature, a film, all right? A piece of something real. Andy's going to be doing the summary on this one. Andy, please take it away.
Knock at the Cabin. So this is the latest sci-fi horror from famed / notorious director M. Night Shyamalan, who we know from such hits as The Sixth Sense, Signs, Unbreakable, and such kind of mediocre films as The Last Airbender. Just a whole lot of stuff. Shyamalan's real hit and miss, but we always got to give him a chance because you never know. He has knocked it out of the park a couple of times, and so we always give him a chance. Maybe he will again. His previous film was Old, which came out a couple of years ago. It involved these group of tourists who go to this beach that makes them old, makes them age fast. That was a little bit lackluster. But we're here at Knock at the Cabin. This is a small film, definitely written during the pandemic. It all kind of takes place at this cabin. It stars Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge as a same-sex family. They have an adopted daughter called Wen, played by Kristen Cui.
Yes.
They are out at their cabin when kind of one day out of the woods, seemingly out of nowhere, enormous Dave Bautista comes out of the woods. His name's Leonard. He approaches the adopted daughter when they have this nice little conversation, and it's hugely intimidating because he's such a huge guy. He's this big mass of a man, and he's strikes up a friendly conversation and says, I need to, where are your parents? Where are you staying? We need to find them. To make this a little bit shorter, eventually, Leonard Dave Bautista and his 3 acolytes break into this cabin, tie up this family, and they give them the proposal. They say, the world is ending, the apocalypse is about to happen, and only you can stop it by selecting someone in your family to die, and you must also kill them. This is a similar premise to Killing of a Sacred Deer, which we reviewed forever ago. That's kind of our sci-fi setup. And so our question is, are these people insane? Are they part of a cult? Are they crazy? Or is there something more? Will they have to make this kind of terrible decision? So that's our setup. Zach, what'd you think?
So this movie's in a unique space for Andy and I because we haven't talked about it at all. I wasn't even sure if Andy had seen it before we got on the podcast, so I'm glad you did. I saw it too. Normally we get together to talk about stuff like this, and for Old, we talked about it a lot, I think, before the show, because we were excited to be like, oh my God. I mean, we saw it together. And Old, I think, makes the painful, very, very painful crime of waiting way too long to tell the characters on screen what the audience already knows, that the beach makes you old. It's like nearly an hour before the characters in the movie figure out the beach makes you old. Brutal. Horrible pacing. Completely thrown off. I don't know if M. Night Shyamalan listens to feedback. He probably does a little bit. Because this movie does not do that. It very quickly moves into exactly where it needs to be and spends most of its time there. A small cast, small setting. At times, it almost felt Hitchcockian. Maybe not as good as Hitchcock, but I think Knock at the Cabin does some things well. It's not Shyamalan's best movie. I think it's stronger than Old for sure. So I'm pleased to say I liked it more. Andy, what did you think?
I feel like it still took too long to get to the premise because we like basically where we are. You could start where Act 2 starts because again we know from the trailer there is these 4 scary people. They have Big Dave is Big Dave, but they also have these big manufactured weapons that look very medieval. We know they break into the house. We know the premises. Then you must choose someone in your family to kill in order to end the apocalypse. So we spend the first 40 minutes getting there, and there's a long sequence of them breaking into the cabin, which just goes on too long because we know they're going to get in. So we just get us there, and then kind of the middle of the film, we are spent like trying to convince them that no, this is real, and there's like news reports that start coming on, and they talk about having had visions, and they were brought together from 4 very disparate places. Trying not to get too much into the details. There are some things that work about this, and a lot that doesn't. It does the same kind of like Old, where it's really like a Twilight Zone episode or like a Black Mirror episode that's stretched into an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes. Like it's a small. The premise is a little bit too small and simple, and the film is too small. It could have expanded on things, but again, this is definitely a pandemic written film, and everything was very small in scale for a reason.
So it does have, I should say, a good runtime. It's like 100 minutes. It's like real tight, which is great. I think Old was like almost 2 hours. Yeah, at least it felt like it. So it does a better job of moving, I think, in that way. But I think the novel that this movie is based on. I forget the name of it. The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay's name. And I think that serves as like a much stronger base for Shyamalan to kind of shape into his own vision and adapt than what originally I think was the graphic novel for Old. I think Old was a little thin, and I think Shyamalan had it in his head that it was a bit like, I don't know, a bit more divine than it turns out to be, when actually it's a really simple idea. Knock at the Cabin, alternatively, like I think it comes off initially as very simple and grows into something a bit bigger. And I like that. Like, I think it's still got problems in pacing for sure. Andy's right. It does still take a little while to get to what's in the trailer, but it's much faster. Like, you can at least agree, like, if it had been old, it would have been like, they're getting home from work on Monday, and one of the husbands is like, God, I'm so stressed. And Eric's like, well, it'll be okay. We'll just got to make it to Friday. And then, like, choose, like, it would have been forever before they're in the car going to the cabin and they're doing the thing. This one opens, they're already there. And they've already been at the cabin. Like, at least it's like, okay, we're in the setting we need to be. And he's right. It does feel like a bit of a bottle picture that way, especially in some of its presentations of events happening outside of the cabin. Like Andy said, they are trying to prevent the apocalypse. You can see a little bit in the trailer. These like news reports they'll pull up, will show something happening, and it's like pretty clunky footage, like a tsunami. It looks okay in the moment, I think, but does come off looking a little cheesy. I think it does a good job with its material because of the book and because of, I should say, Shyamalan's camera work, which I like a lot, and also a few performances we should mention.
Yeah, I was gonna say this does continue the M. Night Shyamalan tradition of ruining books, because old is also based on a book that's very different, and apparently this Knock at the Cabin, the book that it's based on, is also very different from here. So M. Night just like when he makes these adaptations, he makes a lot of changes, not necessarily for the better, but the performances are really good, and I think the directing and cinematography is really good. These are the things that work in the film. We have 4 people who genuinely believe that they are in the apocalypse, that this is the end of the world, and also part of what they have to do is kind of begin sacrificing one another in order to kind of both unleash a plague, but try to convince the family that you got to pick one of you to perish. And so the performances are top notch. It's one of the things that does work really well in the film.
Yes, Big Dave is a lot of fun as Leonard. Like, he's very subtle. He's very drawn back. He's got it's testament to, I think, his acting ability. Dave Bautista is so good at feeling soft, even though he looks like this just monster of a man. Like, in this movie, he just feels like the most innocent dude. Like, he's never super aggressive. Like, he keeps himself really toned back, and like you get a feeling uniquely that like Leonard is not a dangerous man, which is perfect for his stature because he looks like a dangerous guy. And you spend a lot of the film pondering, what exactly is happening here. Are these events being influenced by the apocalypse or some kind of larger meaning? Or is it less than that? Is it maybe not all as it seems? And Shyamalan, of course, is known for his twists. And I think it's worth mentioning that like one of the things that Shyamalan, I think I feel like with this movie, maybe I'm overreading this. He's coming into his own here. I think he's starting to tap into this idea of like belief as a subject. Like, what do you believe? What have you been told versus what have you seen? And this happens in a lot of his movies. I mean, a lot of his movies handle like what is real and what isn't real, and how does that influence me and my identity and my decision making. Signs does this. The Village does this. Split does this. Glass does this. Like a lot of them. Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, all of them kind of tackle this idea. And Knock at the Cabin, I think, unlike Old, like is much more in line with that mantra. Are the things that are happening to us real, or is this false? Do the people who are doing this to us think it's real, or do they think it's false? Like, how does this all shake out into a larger situation? And it does a really great job of walking that line because Eric, one of the fathers, is skeptical. Or no, he's not so skeptical. He kind of sort of believes what's happening. But Andrew, the other father, does not. And he's like, no, this is not real. This is all fake. And he will list reasons why. And it's just enough of a seed of doubt. It's just enough for me to kind of set up in my chair a little and go, okay, hold on a second. Maybe this is going somewhere. And I like that it doesn't overstay its welcome. I like that it's not too long. I think that stuff is where it's most effective.
Right. Well, part of the again with the performances, one of the things that ties in, there's a B story, kind of the subplot is the meeting of the family. We have a young Eric and Andrew meeting, but also Andrew at one point suffers this kind of vicious attack, which is kind of assumed to be kind of a homophobic bit of violence and an attack, and that's part of what he thinks is happening here. He said, we're being attacked and targeted as a same-sex couple. There's no apocalypse, and that's part of it. It's very clumsily tied in, but that is kind of his motivation of like he really wanted to fight back because the last thing he wants to be is a victim.
Yeah, and I think that plays effectively against our group of hostage takers, I guess, because when one of them is accused of a larger crime and then subsequent evidence comes out that points to, okay, that might be true, suddenly like motivations are up in the air. And I love that. Like, I love this moment where this movie pulls back and goes, wait a second. Yeah. Okay, we're seeing stuff on TV, but is that actually linked to what's happening here? Is that even real? Is that pre-recorded? How much of that is valid? And like, you get this clever bit of like paranoia in the movie. Unfortunately, being a quick film, it doesn't manage to sit in that space long enough. There's a lot of films that can do this well. A lot of directors who seem to be able to knock this out. But this one's not quite there. Because when you really start to feel like you're unsure of what's happening, suddenly we slide into the third act and they just explain it all right on the front. And it's still a little up in the air. I guess it can be left up to interpretation a bit, but you are ultimately spoon-fed an ending. And I think that hurts it. Like, I definitely think that puts kind of a damper on what could have been a larger, more expressive idea.
Right. Part of what makes this so small, or too small, in my opinion, is there's a lot of telling and not showing. These four acolytes, these four people that are they are here because they have had visions of the apocalypse. They have seen it in their mind, and they have seen each other, and they have like come from different parts of the country and come together. But the thing is, they tell you all this through dialogue, and I was like, it would be really neat to see that, to see these people having visions, to see how they come together to again, just show more than tell. That's what the language of cinema is, and we have way too much talking and way too much dialogue about it. And that's why I think this is kind of a victim of being written and made during the pandemic. Is they kept everything very small for logistical reasons and not having to do. But I think that would have made a lot more. It would have just made everything more interesting.
It's funny. I went a bit of the opposite way because I totally get where you're coming from. But I thought part of them telling people's past and not showing it was effective because it leaves your characters to wonder whether or not they do or do not believe it. If you showed me a flashback, I'd be much more prone to think, oh, that's truth. And that's what I've seen. If you showed me a vision of these things, I would believe it. But if you just tell me your past, it's completely up to me to decide whether or not you meant that. Like, because I don't have any actual tangible evidence of reality. And like, I like that this movie plays in that space. I think it, when you say it like that, they just tell you, don't show you. Okay, that's true. You're right. And movies are show, don't tell. That's very true. But in the moment, in the picture, that didn't bug me too much because I liked that feeling of like who's telling the truth and who isn't it. Right? It's like three truths and a lie. The movie, like you're kind of left to wonder who's being honest here and who isn't. What are they being honest about? What are their real motivations? What are their real intentions? I like that our two dad characters kind of start to splinter. I think that's kind of a neat part of their relationship. Obviously, they still stick together, but one starts to kind of be like, okay, hold on a second, maybe they're onto something here, and the other one's like, not at all. There's no way. And I like that kind of little internal struggle of the two of them. I love the girl, Kristen Cui is her name. She's going on to do stuff for sure. She's really charming. Somebody pointed out Shyamalan's pretty good at directing kids. He's not perfect, but he's not bad. Like there's some decent kid performances across Shyamalan pictures, and I think this is another one of like a pretty good example. And I also want to mention Ben Aldridge as Andrew is really tremendous, and Abby Quinn is Adrian. She's one of the four girls. We've actually seen her in a couple features. We watched in the show. She's an extra in I'm Thinking of Ending Things. She's in like one other thing we watched. But she's, I think, actually really interesting in here. Like really stands out as kind of this mousy girl who is involved in this terrible situation. I Any other thoughts, Andy? I want to talk real quick about visuals and music, but I should duck back to you.
Yeah. So one of the things, again, a lot of our evidence of whether the apocalypse is happening are these big news. There's a TV in the cabin that happens to have good cable, even though they don't have good signal. And they're getting all these news
Yeah.
reports of things, and it's kind of a cop out. Again, it would be with kind of lackluster CGI. You could have been more creative about that, but also it's almost too big. Like, it would be better if, like, instead of a world-ending event, it was more like this nearby city will be destroyed if you, or the country, or just something. It's a little bit too big. It's blue sky beam, like you get in a lot of like superhero movies, like going to destroy the Earth. I think this is the part where it needed to be scaled down to something a little bit more tangible and real.
It's true. What was that? There's a cabin horror film where it's like body horror. These people, I forget the name of it. People get infected, and like one by one, they start to.
Cabin Fever.
I think Cabin Fever does that a lot better. Like, it's a lot slower and everything's immediate. It's happening to the characters. Like, so you kind of have that back and forth. Whereas this is mostly stuff happening outside of the cabin. Yeah, and you mostly get it through like newsreel footage. There is like one shot in the trailer that I thought looked cool that I don't think is actually in the movie, or if it is, it's shopped. It's Andrew's got Wen, and they're exiting the cabin. They're outside, and the camera's down on the ground looking way up, and you can see them walking, and then above them, like an airplane spinning out of control in the air. And I thought, okay, that looks really cool. That's like immediate, intangible. And I don't think that actually makes it into the feature, or if it is, it's like it's changed. But I do wish they'd had a bit more of that. Yeah, because on the one hand, you play into this feeling of like, well, what do you believe? Do you believe this is happening, or don't you? But at the same time, it can make for a bit of a dry picture, especially if you've got high expectations. One thing I didn't think was dry was a lot of the camera work I actually really liked. It's not perfect, but a lot of really interesting one-point perspective, a lot of like genuinely thoughtful framing that I did not expect. I mean, I know Shyamalan's been doing this a long time, but like I don't recall like any of that from old. But there's a couple scenes in here where I was like, actually, that's a really great shot, or that looks really good. I don't know if he worked with a cinematographer, but and then additionally, I like the music. I like the music of this movie a lot. Like, lots of strings, very active, keeps suspense moving, very orchestral. Like, I don't know. I thought it felt tight. And any thoughts? You are a resident music man.
I can't really remember much of the music. Didn't really stand out to me.
Oh, yeah. I can't hum any of it, so I get it.
Yeah, what? Sing the theme to Knock the Cabin.
Yeah, go ahead, hum the theme. Yeah.
The last thing I want to touch on is that it kind of thematically is all over the place. Again, there's a limit to the number of conflicts we can create in fiction, but what a movie or a piece of fiction can be about, it's kind of subtext and themes can be kind of infinite. But we get a big mix of stuff, and it doesn't really all tie together. We kind of have themes of like past trauma, PTSD, like kind of this blind faith, but it's real disparate. It doesn't really tie together super well.
Yeah, I'm not quite in the same boat. I think I liked it a little bit more than Andy, but like I should say I don't think it's Shyamalan's. It's not quite like a return to form, right? But it's not like a return to form. It's not like, oh my god. Like I told Andy before this came out, I saw two different headlines on Twitter. One was like, it's his best since Signs. It's the best features, which like we've heard that for his last 4 movies. But secondly, other people, they were like, another miss, whoosh, like totally terrible. So I like most of Shyamalan's features, I feel comfortable at least saying that you're probably going to land in one of those spaces. But before you go see it, we should tell you, Andy, would you recommend Knock at the Cabin?
I would say save it for streaming. There are some great things about it. We have good performances led by Dave Bautista as Leonard, who's such a big guy. Just looked him up. He's 6'4", nearly 300 pounds. Massive. But great cast all around. Some interesting moments. Good direction. I think that's probably where Shyamalan shines the best, is through a director. He needs to get someone else's script. He needs to stop writing.
His dialogue's terrible.
Yeah.
Bad.
But it's a little slow in the pacing. It's a lot of telling and not showing. It feels a little bit like a play sometimes. It's okay. It's definitely better than old. Not as good as what he's done before. Save it for streaming. I'm
kind of in the same camp. I no big rush to go see this in a movie theater. If you're gonna count catch Discount Tuesday or something, like maybe, but like you're not beating down the door to see this thing. I think streaming is a fine place for it. If anything, it'd probably play better because of streaming offerings. I do think it's pretty good. Like, and if Andy's right and this is like a full on pandemic feature, like I think it's one of the better. Like we've seen some that are kind of really lukewarm or kind of experimental, but this one seems to be in a pretty good place. It's different and it's based on a book. Might be worth going to read that if you're interested instead. But I think Night at the Cabin's good. I know it's not great Shyamalan, but it's good Shyamalan.
Like it's worth it's worth like a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Sip lemonade and
Yes.
watch.
I would tell, yeah, if my dad needed a feature to watch and he's like, how do you, I'm like, Knock the Cabin's not bad. Like he'd probably like that, like a couple hours. Sure. You know, it's not bad. Short, quick, to the point, nearing that ideal 90-minute film length. Knock the Cabin's not half bad. And speaking of half bad, we're going to talk about some uproarious news in the comic book world. Andy, you want to introduce us here?
It's been a while, but it's time for the death of cinema. So we got some huge news last week, finally, out of DC. We were waiting all month long for James Gunn and Peter Safran, the new kind of heads of DC Studios, to unveil their big kind of 10-year-long plan for DC. We had no idea of rumors swirling about, and they came at the 11th hour, January 31st. They released a lot of big news, so we got a huge amount to talk about. Just before we get started, I'm totally excited. I'm really stoked for this stuff. It's the most excited I've been about DC in a long time.
Yes.
So let's jump into it. Go ahead, Zach.
I was going to say, a bit of a preface from me before we jump into it. Yes, if you haven't been listening to the show or you're not up on it, DC has had some trouble in the movie world, right? What was the last Superman movie you saw in a movie theater? And other than the Batman, when was the last time you went and saw a Batman movie? Like, it hasn't really been panning out for them with their Zack Snyder verse. But finally, new leadership, new direction, new vision. We've got a plan. Andy, what's next for DC? What are they doing?
We'll start with the man who started it all, Superman. There's going to be a Superman film called Superman Legacy, which comes out July 11th, 2025. We already have dates, so that's exciting. 2.5 years away. It's going to deal with a younger Superman dealing with his human upbringing. And we also have a couple of other Superman projects. We have what they're calling Elseworld, which is going to be kind of things out of the main universe. For example, Joker or the Batman would be Elseworld stories. They're going to be a separate Superman movie written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which will feature a black Superman, which is like Earth 23. That'll be super exciting. Thoughts on that, Zach?
I think Superman's going to be good stuff. Andy and I have talked about this a couple of times. How do you do Superman? And I think they're coming at it from the perfect spot. We're not going with Henry Cavill, which is a bummer, because everybody likes him as Superman. But Gunn, who's penning the script and may direct, he's not sure, says it's going to be a younger Superman. He's not Smallville Superman. He'll be Daily Planet reporter Clark Kent. And I think it's exactly where you need to be. That's where you should be aiming. We did Smallville on TV. Everybody's seen Superman in underwear. Like, we need that spot in the middle where he's still getting it together. A little like Robert Pattinson's Batman. In my head, maybe a little bit more like Tom Holland's Spider-Man, right? Like, young kid, still figuring it out, like, still finding his way. I don't think that's a bad plan. I think that's good. As for the others, I don't know them that well. There's some obscure DC stuff in here. There's a couple of properties that I am not wise to.
Right. I'm gonna try not to spend too much time on all these. We have a film called The Authority, which is a set of heroes that I'm not super familiar with, but they apparently guard the universe, the planet, but with very kind of questionable means. So maybe kind of a Suicide Squad kind of role there. We'll see more on that. Not a lot of information on that. Which brings us to Batman. There's a few Batman projects. We're going to be getting a sequel to Robert Pattinson's The Batman called The Batman Part 2. Again, an Elseworld thing. And then we are getting a new Batman, and this is going to be part of the DC universe, called The Brave and the Bold, which features both Batman but also a Robin, which we have not seen in ages. And this is going to be include Damian Wayne, which is, for those who don't know, Batman has like a secret child he doesn't know about, eventually comes to live with him. He's trained by assassins. They don't get along. They kind of hate each other, but they they work together. That's a very modern thing happening in comics, and they're going to be bringing that to screen, which is exciting. Next is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. I'm super excited about this. So we're going to be getting a new Supergirl film, and it's going to be based on this comic that I actually read last year called Woman of Tomorrow, which is a phenomenal run by Tom King. 7 issues. Go out and read it. It deals with with Supergirl going through a very different experience from Superman. She grows up on in her city. Like, her city survives the explosion of the destruction of Krypton, but the kind of rock that they're on eventually becomes radioactive, and she has to watch everyone sort of die. And she's the lone survivor, and over 15 years watches everyone she knows pass away, and is very jaded, very, like, she's kind of hard drinking, kind of Supergirl. It's a hardcore run. Like, it's some, there's genocide, the topics of genocide in it. That's going to be really well, and that movie like that is long overdue. I'm super excited for that. Go ahead.
No, so I didn't know where to jump in. Batman or Supergirl or Brave and the Bold. No, I think Supergirl sounds great. Listen, part of me is skeptical, but on the other hand, I'm like, if you can do better than Captain Marvel, you're going to be in a great spot. Because everybody was stoked for Captain Marvel, and then it came out and was kind of just like, oh, it's like fine. Like, it wasn't like super awesome. So I think Supergirl's in a good spot. New Pattinson's good stuff in the Batman, and I'm excited for their Elseworlds idea. I think that's good. Brave and the Bold, I'm a little nervous about Damian Wayne. I need to find out more. I don't know if America wants Dad Man. I don't know if we want Dad Batman. I don't know if people are going to like take Kid Robin. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I'm a little skeptical.
I haven't read a lot of that, but it would be interesting because, typically the Batman Robin dynamic is very father-son, raising my boy, kind of my protege, and Damian is kind of the opposite. Like, he was raised by assassins. He was raised kind of with an it's like Manchester by the Sea. All of a sudden you gotta go live with your dad, who happens to be Batman, and you hate him.
Listen, if they could do Manchester by the Sea Batman, I'd be into that. That's the tone I think you need to be aiming for. Like, really thoughtful, like a little bit deeper than just like it can't be.
It's gonna be that they don't get along. It's the kid that it's the trope of like, oh, I just gotta, my brother and sister died and I gotta be a step parent to their kid. And same thing happens in Megan. But
yes.
that's very much a trope of films, and I think it could definitely work.
What else you got?
That brings us to our last kind of big announcement film wise, which is Swamp Thing. Which is going to be loosely based on the Alan Moore run, or at least in tone. This already has a director attached to it, James Mangold, who's doing the new Indiana Jones film and also did Logan, a fantastic comic book film. And this is going to be a horror film, they said. So this is a perfect way to do Swamp Thing, because there's lots of great horror elements of that character.
It's weird, man. Like, normally I would not be hyped for Swamp Thing, but the comic people in my life tell me it is a total sleeper, and it's really good stuff. Like, Swamp Thing is actually really solid. Apparently, this Alan Moore's run has been really good. James Mangold, possibly interested in directing. I know he tweeted a photo. Like, I think we might be in a good spot. Like, I think that sounds really cool. Again, I don't know if America's ready for a good Swamp Thing. I think they might like cheesy Swamp Thing, but we'll see. Either way, Gunn clearly is emerging with a really creative direction here. Like, my man has a passion for the freaks. He wants the side characters. He wants the Suicide Squad and the Peacemakers. Like, he wants the people who aren't that popular and aren't at the front. Like, I think that's the stuff he really wants to cut his teeth on, and I love it. Like, I love that direction, because I think some of the best stuff that's come out of DC under Walter Hamada formerly was the side stuff, right? Shazam and even Suicide Squad. Peacemaker, like, those are the things that kind of worked. So, like, continuing with the weird but leaving space for like your solids up at the top, Superman, Batman, like, I think that's the best way to go. I really do.
Yeah, it's a great mix of both characters we know and love and want to see more of, and then things that we haven't seen, like Supergirl's long overdue to be in there. Swamp Thing as well, fantastic character. They did a show that was like immediately canceled. Apparently, it was really bad. Also, what's notable is What Is Not Here, and who is not here. No announcements for Wonder Woman. No announcements for Shazam. No comments on The Flash, Ezra Miller's characters. So these are also big main characters who have been part of the last 10 years of DC, and are not in the new plans. And so we don't know what that means. They may show up later. They may not show up at all. We don't really know what's happening to them.
Yeah, it's true. There is one thing for Wonder Woman. Did you mention this show they're making?
No.
Yeah, a Game of Thrones style drama set on Wonder Woman's home island of Themyscira, the Amazonian palace. That, like, you've seen it. They're talking about doing like a show for that, but I don't know a lot about it. And it would be set like before Wonder Woman comes along. It would just be like the Amazonians. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I think that's the thing. I think with a lot of these, I don't know who the audience is for them, but like that's part of what makes it so fun, right? Like, how many movies have we watched on this show that like don't have a large audience, but we're all about it? Like that's just cool. And like I think Gunn is able to tap into that. And if he can bring the level of quality, he's brought stuff like Peacemaker, then I think we'll be in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things he did was bring characters that we didn't know from Guardians of the Galaxy and made them all household names. So I think he definitely has the talent to do that again. And he's looking to be really creative, not just do the Zack Snyder thing of like, well, now we got to have a 20-minute action scene. And like, I think he's looking for some really different things. Real quick, HBO, or they will be making some shows on HBO. There's one called Creature Commandos, another called Waller, which is Amanda Waller, played by, why can't I think of her name? Viola Davis will be...
EGOT winner, Viola Davis.
Paradise Lost, which Zach just mentioned. Booster Gold, who's like a B-C-list DC hero, but very much beloved. He's going to be having a show. And Lanterns, which a Green Lantern show was announced for HBO, but they're going to be taking a little bit different direction. It's going to involve the main two Lanterns, Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's going to be a while, though. We're not getting anything until 2025.
Yeah, and most interestingly, I think I like the way they're basically double downing on the popular properties. We're getting 2 Superman features, and one will be Inline, and the other will be Elseworlds. Same with Batman. We're getting 2 Batman features with different Supermen and different Batman playing both. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? Why give people less Superman when you could give them more? And if people like one over the other, then I guess you'll just run in that direction. And if they don't, then you just call it Elseworlds and leave it. Like, I don't think that's a bad policy. Like, why not, right? DC could run the table. So hopefully it's something good. I mean, if they can nail a tone that feels really distinct from Marvel, I think they'll be in a really good place. I think a lot of people are sick of looking at the Ant-Man trailer again and seeing like the same cheesy plan for what's coming next. So Ant-Man in theaters February 17th.
I'm so much more excited for this than I have been for any of the Marvel stuff in a long time. Like I said, Phase Snore really made everything lackluster. It looks like they might be getting the magic back. We'll see, but I'm definitely excited for all the DC stuff coming out.
Yeah, I'm as well. And with that, we should move on to our final film. I realize the episode's running along, but we're getting there. I promise. It's been a big week. We've been out for a week. So with that, we should move into our second film of the episode. I'm going to be taking the summary on this. Please excuse my clumsy delivery. The movie is Infinity Pool. So Infinity Pool is the new Brandon Cronenberg feature. Son of acclaimed body horror director David Cronenberg. Brandon Cronenberg has recently made one feature that we are really familiar with, Possessor, which came out a couple years ago. And then I forget the name of his one previous to that, but we didn't see it. So we saw Possessor on the podcast. Our old episode's out there. This is a new feature starring Alexander Skarsgård and Mia Goth. Alexander Skarsgård plays James Foster, who is a struggling writer, struggling with writer's block, who's written one book and hasn't done anything in 6 years. He's married to M, and they're enjoying a wonderful vacation on the fictional island of Latolka when he meets Gabby, what is her last name? Bauer, played by Mia Goth, and her husband Alban, I think, who are 2 other vacationers enjoying their stay at Latolka, and they get to know each other, and he kind of fancies her, and she kind of fancies him, and M's like, what's going on with you? But, it's high society snobbery, a la Triangle of Sadness, the menu. Our characters go out one afternoon, stray away from the resort, and after a horrific accident, discover that The island of Latolka, its own nation, has some radically different rules about how crime is doled out, or crime is dealt with, punished. And James Foster finds out that he is sentenced to die for his crime island, but he can get out of it by donating a large fund of money to Latolka's vacationer pension, or whatever it's called, and having a double built. A full double, not just like a mannequin that looks like James Foster, a full-on clone. And after agreeing to this and getting money out of a shady ATM, he's put in a hospital gown, and he has this thing put on his head, and he climbs in this tank full of this thick, viscous red liquid, sees some insane vision, and comes out on the other side, James Foster, alongside a double, also James Foster. The double is swiftly served justice, and suddenly James cannot unsee the things he's seen. And it's here on Latolka when he discovers maybe what he truly is. The movie is Infinity Pool. It is like 95 minutes, nice tight body horror feature. Andy, what'd you think?
I wanted to like this movie a lot more than I ended up. There's a lot that works. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I think that Brandon Cronenberg is better director than writer. But it had me like about halfway, 2/3 into the film. I was really on board, and then it kind of doesn't know where to go. But the premise is fascinating because it's set up in a very stereotypical way. We have this trope of like, these two couples meet on an island. They're kind of flirting around with each other. You definitely get the idea there's going to be some infidelity happening. And one of those, well, the island is not all it seems. What's going on behind closed doors? So it has a lot of those kind of tropes and setups that we're familiar with. But then it goes in a very, very different direction. And it reminded me a lot of Possessor, that has a really fascinating premise. This is what we get out of this as well. Again, with the if you commit a crime, here's, provide us with funds and build the clone, and then, you can kind of get out of it. And this, in a way, makes them immortal and invincible, and that just causes a ton of problems to spiral out of control, when essentially there's no consequences for what you do.
So I think I like this a little bit more than Andy did. Like Knock at the Cabin, I'm not like hugely warm on it, but I did like a lot about it. I think it's stronger than Possessor. But on its own merits, Infinity Pool does have a couple of issues. But I like this like fundamental idea of the doubling, right? You think of films like Richard Ayoade's The Double, or Denis Villeneuve's Enemy, or even Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, right? Films where our protagonists are cloned in some fashion, metaphorically or literally, right? For a magic trick, or in reality. And I like this idea that this movie functionally opens pretty normal, right? It's pretty fine. The trailer does a great job of highlighting this. The first 45 seconds of the trailer, you're like, okay, this looks like a normal feature. But then when tragedy strikes and somebody explains, you're going to die unless you pay us to have a double built, it's like, what? And then you get into like the weird twist. Like, it's like Cronenberg turns on the weird, right? Like, that's when the movie hits the gas and takes off. And I like that. Like, I like that it's got a pretty straight start before it just like drops into the madness. And I think that's good stuff. The problem is, a little like Possessor, like, I don't know if Cronenberg quite has the through line for how to get through the madness. David Cronenberg, his father, obviously had a bit more time to work this out, but his stuff was just a little bit like cleaner, and Brandon's work, I think, is a bit more abstract. This one's a bit more straightforward. But like, it starts to get messy as our characters interact with one another. There's some backstabbing. There's some second guessing. I like that James ends up finding a bit of kind of a community for people like him on Latolka. I like that he's kind of taken under the wing of the Gabby Bauer, the Bowers, and they kind of say, well, hey, there's more to this than meets the eye. And I like that mystery kind of unfolds, especially in like the meaning of a double, right? Like the term infinity pool not only refers to like the luxurious pool with a horizon edge that you'd find at a resort like this, but also the idea that you would be stepping into this pool of liquid and being cloned into infinity, like being there forever. I like that the movie plays with identity, right? Like it very quickly asks the question, who is the double? Was James Foster killed, or was the double of James Foster killed? Are you the double or aren't you? Like, I like that it starts to pose those questions, but unfortunately, by the third act, it just kind of gets messy. I've heard people criticize Mia Goth's performance in the later stages because it's a little too expressive. I've heard Skarsgård is a little too toned back, but I'm not sure. Andy, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I would agree that by the third act, it doesn't really know where to go. And this is, it reminds me a little bit of Knock at the Cabin, where you got a great premise to start things off, but then you don't know how to wrap it up. And that can be really challenging. It's like, okay, you've come up with this great idea. How do we develop characters and conflict and resolution through it? And that's where the film kind of struggles. And it becomes a little bit preoccupied with these kind of psychedelic moments between like the deaths of the clones and a lot of drugs and partying going on. Becomes very much about that, and that's where I think he excels, like creating these very visceral experiences. Like you get a flash, like a photosensitive warning before the movie starts, so it's going to be good. So that stuff works really well. But then again, developing more clear themes, really coming to creating conflict, resolving that conflict, the denouement. It kind of doesn't know where to go. And I would agree. Love Mia Goth. She's the darling scream queen, but she's like at an 11 for most of this film, and it's just too much. Like she needs to dial it back, be at like an 8.
True.
It's just too much.
Yes, I think Cronenberg is as much an audience member to like Mia Goth as we all are, and I think he just like loved the energy she was putting out. And some of the later scenes of this movie, if you're watching on Facebook, we've got a bit from the trailer up where she's in the street like screaming and holding a firearm, and she's like laughing maniacally. I did like it. I'll be honest. I was into it. I felt like she was channeling quality Nick Cage, like which not everybody can do. That is a few and far between. Like she was
went
like
full Cage.
Yes, like she's turning it to a level that I'm like, oh baby, like not many people can get up here. Even Skarsgård, I think, tries to go for it, but doesn't quite start to reach that peak. I think she's great. I think she can do more. But like I said when we saw this, and I saw this together, Cronenberg's like weird, obscure horror psychedelic montages. He does it in Possessor, and he does it in this feature as well. They remind me of like the Sylvester Stallone like sports montage, right? Like getting fit, running to the top of the stairs, the 80s music. It's kind of like that, but like weird, obscure stuff where you're seeing like melted faces and like fluorescent lights, like all kinds of weird things happening. And this movie has like 3 sequences of that. Like, and one of them is particularly long. And he's right. Like, not only does the film open with a flash on the screen that says, "Hey, warning, if you are prone to epilepsy or seizures, take caution." They had it printed on the door and at the door of the theater. And then when I bought the ticket, like all down the way, they
Bring
specifically
your glow sticks.
Yes, like Cronenberg has made it very clear that I will put any disclaimer necessary on this movie to not have to change it to be the way it is. And it's been changed. Originally, the cut of this was NC-17, and it's been cut back for what's here. Big content warning. Still plenty of reasons for this movie to be hard rated R. Good Lord. Content warning, nudity, violence, language, nudity again. But I can imagine, like, having already seen it, I think Andy as well, you could easily imagine a world where this could be turned up a little bit and be too much for general audience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much an experience, a very visceral one. Fantastic sequences. And again, Possessor had some of this too. That's a much smaller film on a smaller level, so he can't indulge as much, but he still has that kind of psychedelic flair in that movie, and he brings it over to this one as well.
Yeah, overall, I think like Infinity Pool is this, like Possessor, obscure piece of like atmospheric and bizarre horror, like that has elements of body horror. I like that it's larger questions of this idea of doubling, of like creating another version of yourself and then having to watch that version get murdered brutally in front of you. Like I like that. And like Andy's right, like that opening, that hook is great to start with, but it just feels like it doesn't really get off the runway past that because it's such a grand opening. Possessor's got the same problem. The byline for Possessor's fantastic. A woman who's part of an organization that possesses people and uses them for ill means gets trapped inside a body and can't get out. Like, that's great. Like, that's a great start for like a sci-fi movie, but like it has trouble getting over the finish line with that much bluster. And Infinity Pool, unfortunately, suffers a bit of the same problem, I think, if you are not into the really odd, bizarre, atmospheric stuff, which I was charmed by in this feature. Andy, not so much. I think it's going to be less people are going to like that than more, for sure. Like, it's tough to recommend.
It definitely needs, I'm reminded of course, the Cronenberg Senior, David Cronenberg, who brought us Videodrome, and Videodrome is a fascinating premise, middle, and end of like the whole premise asking about what is reality, what happens when we begin creating our own reality. It's great from start to finish, and Brandon Cronenberg has to find that third act. He's got to find how to tie it all together, how to say something with this these incredible premises that he comes up with.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I feel the same way. Videodrome, fantastic example, by the way. Can't believe how well that movie holds up. We've still talked about it since we saw it. Good God, like that movie's more relevant now than ever.
Yeah, even more yeah. So.
Being trapped by the allure of the screen, like, oh
yeah,
God.
What happens when you create your own reality?
It's right. Oh God. Anyway, overall, I think Possessor. Overall, I think Infinity Pool. I think it's better than Possessor. I do. Like, I like it more, but I do think he's still. I don't know. He's got to keep chasing it, and he's gonna make something else. But
right, I think he's a better director than writer. I think he would do phenomenal things with someone else's script, with a really solid script. I think he would do amazing things.
I think that's actually really valid. Any other thoughts for recommendation?
I'm ready.
Would you recommend Infinity Pool?
I would say, again, if you're interested, it's not for the faint of heart. It's for those who seek out bold cinema. Don't recommend it to your parents, but save it for streaming. I don't think it's necessarily something you need to run out and see in the theater. It definitely is probably a little bit better experience there because of all the lights flashing, that kind of stuff. But it's definitely for the cinephile, if you're looking for things that are new and out of the ordinary and things like that.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. If you are interested in Infinity Pool, I would encourage you to go see it in a theater, because if you've already heard all of this, you've seen the trailers, you probably have an idea of where Brandon Cronenberg's coming from. He's a pretty niche guy. If you still want to know, go see it, because that will be your best experience to see it. That will be the best way to see it. If you're not sure, if you're like, man, this just sounds too weird for me, 100% streaming. 100% streaming, because it won't hurt. Like, it's still a pretty quick feature, and I don't think it's going to be, it's not particularly cinematically compelling. Like, I think this will play fine on your home surround sound speaker system, whatever. Like, that'll work. Don't watch it on your phone. I mean, if you can swing it, like, don't watch it on your Apple Watch. But like, yeah, I think this will be coming to HBO or something like that at some point, and I think it will be easy to watch. I might have to go back and watch it again. Yeah, I like Infinity Pool though. I like it. It's weird and it's different. I like it more than Possessor. I'm excited to see what he does next. But I definitely, now that I've seen 2 films from Brandon Cronenberg, I think I'll be a little wiser the next time going in, looking for those like obscure montages or some of these kind of tropes, because one way or another, my man is an auteur. He's making his own art. He's just got to figure out what that means for everybody else. And with that, we should probably wrap up the show. Andy, what are we watching next week?
Well, in honor of our brand new Indian audience that we got from watching RRR, we're going to be watching a new Indian action film called Pathan.
That's right.
Which came out a week or two ago, still in theaters. It involves, let me just read the description from IMDb. An Indian spy takes on the leader of a group of mercenaries who have a nefarious plan to target his homeland. So it's an Indian action film. Heard a little bit about this, and we're gonna see if we can retain and get some more info and reactions from that Indian audience.
Yeah, for all the people in there who were like, you don't know anything about Indian cinema, I can't believe you said this. Well, here we are. All right, we're here to learn. We're here to grow. We're gonna give it a go. We'll see what comes out. I will let you know, of course, if we have the same kind of wild reaction that RR has had. My God, if you haven't heard it, our review was a couple weeks ago. You can go hear it on episode 204. And gosh, I should probably tell people where they're going to see it. What else are we watching? We don't really have a lead yet, but we're figuring it out.
Right. So we'll be watching something else. We don't know. There's a few new releases on streaming. Your Place or Mine, which is a rom-com on Netflix. Piggy, which was a small indie horror that came out last year, that's out on Hulu this Friday. And then the big release, which we will not be watching, is Magic Mike's Last Dance in theaters only February 10th. So we're going to see probably something from streaming, maybe something like The Fabelmans, catch up on some of the Oscar stuff. We're not quite sure yet, but we'll be sure to let you know.
Magic Mike's Last Dance currently sitting at a 58 on Rotten with 40 reviews. Reviews just came out today. You know what that means, Andy? It's either good or bad. You like it or you don't. That magical 50 is like the premium spot
for the
weird cinema. Yeah, right. We've seen none of the Magic Mike films, and while I'm sure they're fantastic, we're gonna be skipping them. We'll watch Python. We'll see what else we can find. I don't know. We'll catch something cool. I know AMC, as much as I was ragging on them in the open, I do have gift cards to spend, and they are doing a lot of like Oscar runs for films right now. Like, you can catch The Fabelmans or something you haven't seen it. I think The Woman King might be in theaters again. I might try to go catch that. Everything Everywhere was just in theaters again. So we're getting to a magical time when things are coming out again and good cinema is happening. And God, in just a couple weeks, we're going to be doing Ant-Man. And then, like I was telling my other buddy who I've gone to see a couple features with.
Cocaine Bear.
Dude, once Ant-Man comes out, we are in summer. Like, it is like a banger every week for the next 3 months. Like, it's going to be busy.
Nuts.
So if you want to keep up with what's going on at the movies, and keep up with your boys aren't off script, the best way to do that is just subscribe to the show on your favorite platform. You can find us on YouTube, where we upload our shows and things like our wonderful RR review shorts, one-off reviews, all kinds of stuff going on over there. You should please go check us out at Off Script Film Review on YouTube. We're on Facebook, where we live stream the show every single Tuesday around 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Central. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. You can find us on all the usual podcast outlets: iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartMedia. Like and subscribe where you can. Rate and review where able. 5 stars, if you please. We'd really appreciate it. And we really appreciate you listening to the show. And of course, you can find our website, offscriptfilmreview.com, and you can email us correspondence, mail@offscriptfilmreview.com, to tell us what you like, or what you're interested in, or what you want to watch, or what you thought of our reviews. Anything you're thinking, we're happy to talk about it right here on Offscript Film Review. From all of us at Offscript, the home of bold cinema, I'm Zach Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Draper.
Thanks for watching.